Yeah, since I started driving, I had a parking spot. Then my first house that I bought for like me and my wife had a parking spot. Okay. So I've always had, like, I went from my parents' crib to my crib and just always had the space for it. So it's been convenient. But yes, I am one of the few.
You drove in for this. Are you doing a set tonight?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm doing a spot today at the Magnet.
Did you just do stand-up like basically every night?
Yeah, it's been about a year and a half now. I had like a super serious talk on 2 different occasions with my wife. But yeah, this one was the
serious talk of like, how serious are you taking this, or do you mind if I'm gone every single night of the week?
Both. I would say about what is it now? Maybe like 6 years ago. I did stand up 7 years ago. This June, I was working a ton of hours at a sales company, was doing really well economically, but I was depressed. And my wife noticed it. You know, I wasn't the same guy when I got home. I was real, I don't know if I curse.
Please.
Yeah, I was real shitty with the kids.
Okay.
Not in terms of like mistreating them, but I wasn't giving them my A game. I was just like, I'm home, I'm going to sleep, don't bother me. And it's just not who I wanted to be as a parent and as a husband. She one day just was real blunt and asked me, when was the last time you were happy? And I was like, honestly, when I took that stand-up class at Gotham that I signed up for on a whim just to get better at public speaking.
How long did it take you to come up with that answer? It sounds like it was like right off the top of your head.
I sat there maybe like 30 seconds.
Okay.
Like I legit thought. Like I was like, I looked back at my memories, because I was even thinking of like shit, even when we go to like parties and hanging out, like I just wasn't in it. For quite some time. And I remember that night, not only the experience being fun, but also afterward, all of my family and friends came out because me and my cousin were both in this class. We both did this show. It was a fun night that I remember being truly like a reminder of potential and of what could be that I hadn't had since high school or college, where as an adult, I still felt like there could be more. Up until that point, I felt like I was at a job that paid well, and this was it. I was starting to resign to the fact that this was my future, and I didn't like that. That day was the last time that I felt like the guy that was 21 or 22 and had
guy with the future ahead of him. Yeah.
So it really jarred me when she asked me. I wasn't prepared for the question, and so when she asked me that, she was like, "So why don't you do it again?" And I was like, "We can't. Like, I this is what I do for a living." She's like, "We have the house. We have tenants. We could pay the mortgage with that. You and your dad own another property. Why don't you sit down and talk with them and say, hey, listen, we're going to scale some things back and take some time off and tell jokes." So straight up, I just quit my job and I started telling jokes, and I sucked for a year doing open mics. Then after that, to kind of like alleviate the cushion, a friend of mine who worked in sales, who knew what I could do in sales, but also knew what I was pursuing, was super helpful and gave me a sales job where I wasn't a manager, but was fully accommodating to my schedule. He's like, hey.
So you could ease into it.
So I could ease into it. And I did that for about 3.5 years. And then about a year and a half ago, I resigned from that as well. And it's just been this.
So making that, the transition from this bright young kid with the future ahead of him to feeling like you were locked down, how much of that is, again, just being like totally realistic about how much of it is like having a wife and having a couple kids where you feel like you're not necessarily open to those opportunities in the way that you were before?
Yeah, I think it's all that. I think when I found out I was having my daughter, and my girlfriend at the time and I, we were already talking marriage, and that felt like it sped everything up. Like we had a plan in place, and it's kind of changed it.
Because you had known her for a really long time.
Yeah, me and my girlfriend have known each other since I was 13, 14 years old. So I felt like, oh shit, like I'm messing up what I promised you and what I promised my kid, and he's not even here yet, or she's not even here yet.
The promise being what, just having like all your ducks in a row when the time came.
I wanted to offer stability. I felt like that's not something that I hear offered often from where I'm from in East New York, and I felt like despite that, my parents did a great job of offering stability, and I felt that my job was to build on that, and here I was not leveraging the advantages they gave me and putting my kid in a situation where realistically I'm going to be in the same place, so I felt like this innate pressure to overwork. So, I was doing 60, 70 hours a week at my job. I got promoted very quickly. I got paid very well.
You're good at it.
I was good at it, and I appreciate what it offered me. I'm not I'd never talk bad about the company or the work. It was the expectations I put on myself were more than normal and were too fast in my opinion. And that having that changed who I was as a person. I noticed that in conversations I couldn't talk about anything but sales. I stopped having a personality. And then what really started highlighting it was A, I noticed that I was starting to be angrier more often. I started being depressed more often. And B, also in between myself and my kids, I have siblings that are substantially younger than me. So like they were in like 5th grade, 6th grade, and they're starting to get to that point to where you have to start telling them you could be what you want to be if you work hard. And here I was not being what I wanted to be. And I'm the direct proof. I'm like, it's kind of like BS when you hear your 50-year-old parents say it. But like when your 29-year-old brother says it and he's not actively believing it, it makes it, it doesn't seem real, the statement.
You weren't maybe what you want to be, although like to be fair, it sounds like you didn't really know what you wanted to be up to that point. But you were successful by some measure.
100%. I was happily married. I had 2 kids. I had a house. I had a stable job, 6 figures, like all things that are, being frank to most people would check the box as successful, but it wasn't a job that made me happy. It didn't bring me joy. There were moments of success that I was proud of, but it wasn't something that I wanted to do for 40 years. And that alarmed me because I felt like that was the whole pitch. I felt like my parents were immigrants. They took jobs that allowed them to provide me opportunities, but they took the job that they couldn't say no to. I shouldn't have to do that same job, right? That's the whole vision. Either, I felt like if your parents sacrificed to come here to provide you something, it's either one of 2 things. Either you also take a job you don't like and make way more, which I was doing, or you take a job that you're passionate about because you can, because they've took the risk almost out the way. And I felt like that's what I was giving up. They were providing me a situation where, hey, worst case scenario, you already got a house. You're going to inherit another house. So your life at worst is always going to be middle class. So why are you settling for a job that while it pays well isn't your dream job? So I felt like I was dishonoring them in a lot of ways. I was dishonoring my siblings by telling them that this is the best we could do. And I was really disgusted when I realized that I was saying this to them and that in 10 years I was going to have to say it again to my own kids. So it was really jarring. So I've always had this weird deadline of I need to get semi-known by the time my siblings graduate college. And they just started college. So it's ticking.
The album's out, so you're getting there.
Yeah, I'm on the way. But that's been my logic. I figured I'm older than them, but if by the time they are in their like mid-20s and they're hanging out and like my brother could get laid by saying, hey, my brother is this guy.
That's a lot higher of a bar than you think. I think like start with like, walking down the street and maybe somebody like not knowing if they saw you on Comedy Central or if you went to high school with them. That's a pretty realistic place to start.
Well, I've got that thing. I've got a few like people that have recognized me locally walking around. Oh, I saw you on Amazon. Yeah. So that's been cool. But I want
but you want to get your brother laid.
Yes, I need him to get like laid out. He's like, I was at a bar, I name dropped you. Thank you. I even had a cousin of mine that drives for Uber. He's like, yo, you got me a bigger tip.
All right.
So that was pretty cool. He was like he was doing a cross-state drive. He was like, it was like 2 hours. Damn. He's like, I don't know how to kill time. So I brought up comedy and then I mentioned that my cousin does it and she YouTubed your clip during the drive. So he was like, I was stressed out for you. He's like, if you weren't funny, in her opinion, it would have been awkward for another hour. But he's like, she loved you. She played like 3 more of your clips and she gave me a big tip.
Where do you think your parents' idea of success is? I hear from a lot of people with immigrant parents that it's like, success is sort of being more successful than they are in terms of like, making more money or like getting that more powerful, better job. But do you think they were hoping that you were happy, that was kind of their main goal for you? Like they looked at what you were doing, saw that you had a successful job. Did they understand the transition that you wanted to make?
Initially, no, I don't believe so. I think my mom was more sympathetic to it. My dad very quickly put up a front against it, just because I think that when I think about the struggles that they had initially, both back home in the Dominican Republic and here, most of them strive from opportunities lost because of economic situations. So I think they tie a lot of their happiness and their success as parents with the economics. And also, I don't think that they lived a reality where job satisfaction was a thing. For them, it was, this is the highest paying job that I could take that allows me to give my kid this. My dad doesn't my dad can't fathom the idea of my job brings me joy. It's just I did a ton of different hustles, and this is the one that allowed me to pay for the most things that gave you the best life. If this job paid me a little more, I'd leave for that. In turn, I could pay for you to go to a private school, and you could do something I could never do. So
you did the complete opposite.
Right.
You knew that you were going to spend at least a year struggling, and like honestly, just a year struggling in stand-up is pretty good.
Yeah, thankfully. Yeah. And that was the awkwardness of it. It was having that conversation where what I was pursuing wasn't just economic. It was like, I feel that there's a level here that you didn't have the opportunity to go after, and I need to go after in order to honor you. And explaining that to him, that like, if I'm working a slightly better job that pays slightly more, but I'm still just as angry on Friday as you are, as you were on Friday, I didn't do better by you. Now, I'm not saying that there's nothing wrong with that. Sure. If that's all I could get to, or if I shot my shot and that's what I got, I'd be fine with it. It's the fact that I hadn't attempted.
So Dad, like hypothetically, what if instead of this 6-figure job, what if I found one that paid me nothing? Right. I could do for a year.
Right. And he wasn't on board.
No,
and so
understandably.
I get it, you know, and those were the talks we had. So he was like, he was, a lot of the issues were the fact that there was no direct ladder. He's like, I don't know what the next step is. Do you get promoted? You know, he's like, I see you getting more popular. People tell me your shows are being more attended. I see your cousins talking about it on Facebook, but you're still broke. You still live on my block, you know? So like nothing's changed. Whereas like at your job, you could tell me in 18 months, you'll get promoted. Or if you did what I do, he does real estate, you know, so you'd be like, if I save up for 24 months, I'll have a new down payment. I could buy another property. The lack of control really concerned him. You know, like so much of comedy, I can do the work. I can control how good I am at my craft, but the direct opportunities are a bit more vague of when they come up. And that was a big issue for him. And it was hard to explain to him that I was willing to deal with that in this pursuit. So it's still something that we struggle with whenever we kind of get deep into money talks. It's also something that's come up a lot more recently because my brother's 19 and he's really ambitious economically, and it's awkward because my dad ideally he's older, he wants to start handing things off to me, but he has to acknowledge that my sibling is also an adult and is also willing and prepared for a lot of these things, and it's a weird dynamic.
Good for you though that you've got that brother who can kind of take that off your plate.
It's been nice because he can kind of, take over things that I didn't want to do. By the same token, it might make some of those conversations awkward. Maybe he does something inappropriate and now I can't fully check him as an authority figure because he makes more than me or something. So
do you feel like that changes the dynamic that much? Just how much you make?
Depending on how much, I think it does.
Yeah.
I think
you'll always be his older brother.
To an extent, yeah, obviously like the factual, yes. But like if I make $50,000 and I have a brother making $350,000, that does affect, I think, the power dynamic in a home.
Even if you got him laid that one time by being a famous comedian?
and $50,000 would do that, right? So if I got to that level, I think that would actually alleviate a lot of it for it. But, realistically, I'm thankfully making a living from comedy. I'm paying bills, but, I also know how much I made before. I also know how much my parents make now.
Yeah.
And I know what my brother can potentially make, what my sister could potentially make if they pursue that line of work. And kind of fill in the seat that I didn't want. And that does affect, I think, a lot of the dynamics and conversations in family. If, just being frank, if someone's in need, if someone's sick, a lot of those questions get answered directly by money. So while it hasn't come up yet, he is a super intelligent, great kid, but he is also probably the person most prone to challenge me out of like my siblings and my parents. It's a concern that not necessarily I have, but that my parents have, as we slowly kind of like pass the baton to you guys. I don't want to put you in a situation where we trust your moral and your moral compass and want you to help bring up your siblings, and then we have you in a situation where your brother isn't fully there morally or as a grown up and needs your help, but he has a point of pride because of money that he might not want to listen to your advice. So all that's to say, my dad is hoping that my comedy career takes off.
Are these conversations that you're actually having with them, or is how much of this is actually just like hypothetical in your your brain. It's a little Game of Thronesy, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. My boy Jeff was telling me that it sounds like a hood Successions. Yeah. A lot of it is in my head for sure. I definitely do a lot of game theory stuff. I like to be ahead of pace of what might happen. I try to prepare for any theoretical situation because I know I'm the oldest sibling. I know that I'm substantially older than my siblings, and I'm also a parent, so I feel like I have a responsibility to them to show them that you should pursue your dreams, but I also have an economic responsibility to them. I have a responsibility to their moral upbringing, and all of those things kind of weigh on me constantly. So when I'm doing comedy, I pursue it very seriously because, I want to make sure that I'm good at it, but I also want to make sure I'm not wasting my time. Like if this doesn't work, at some point I have to pull the cord and go back to work just so that I could help lead that front because I know it's still there. It's something that's definitely in my head more, but in turn, my dad is older. He has gotten, he's had more health issues the last few years, and we've had more direct convos probably in the last 12 months about this than we've ever had. So it is something that's coming up more. And then, my brother and I don't talk about it as much yet. It's more like undercurrent.
That first year when it was tough, when you were struggling, and I assume like you were going to a lot of open mics, did you ever get close to pulling the plug on it? Did you ever get close to kind of going back to that other successful career?
Year one, no. Year one, I felt that, what I made at my prior job was great economically, but the stress level working for someone else's dream and someone else's standards was so real and it took up so much of my brain, like so much of like my thinking and so much of, my day-to-day energy that memory like really stuck with me. So that whole first year, I had no qualms about saying this is what I'm doing fully with my time, and I had no thoughts of going back. In turn, I did treat it like a business. Like, I sat down with my wife about a week after, we had the discussion, and before I even talked with my boss, and I said, okay, if I'm going to do this, I read all the interviews, and I sat down, I listened to Mark Norman and, Roy Wood Jr. and Jerry Seinfeld and seen their schedule, their work ethic. So if I'm going to do this, fine. Every day I'm going to do 5 open mics. I'm going to write for 4 hours. I need you to know this is what I'm pursuing for these hours a day, every day, so that I could actually get something worthwhile out of this. Otherwise, it's not worth it. And obviously, my wife was thrilled to hear that because that means, okay, cool, I'm not being crazy and saying you should do this.
You don't think maybe somewhere in the back of her mind she was hoping that you would kind of run out of gas at some point?
I think that's come closer after that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think when I took the first job afterward and she saw the significant pay cut, but B, that I was now thinking long term about doing this. I think it hit her like, okay, she thought I was
just going to get out of your system or something. Yeah.
No, she saw like, oh wow, like he's really like adamant about like this is a long game. And I think there were regularly points where she wanted to pull the cord, and thankfully a few things would happen there. Like one, I feel she has the right to feel that way. She didn't sign up for it. Not like she met me as a comic.
If she asked you tomorrow, if she was like, all right, well, this is enough of this. Would you go along with that?
Tomorrow, no.
Okay.
If she asked me tomorrow if we could start having a talk about an end date, I would do that. I'd be open-minded to hearing that convo. The end date would have to be something realistic, in my opinion. I feel like I'm just past the point to where that wouldn't be fair as well. Like I've achieved enough things where we can start seeing the things that we dreamed about initially when I pursued this as starting to be realistic. But I trust her enough as a partner that I'd still be willing to have that convo. Like like I said, I've known her since I was 14. Been married for 10 years. So if she tells me, hey, listen, I don't see what you see, but if you really feel this way, I'm willing to wait this much longer before we have to start thinking about you transitioning back to a normal line of work. So yeah, I'd have that talk with her for sure. Truthfully, I'm not sure where I'd land on it, but I'd be open to hearing it. But if she told me very directly, you need to cut this tomorrow, that'd be an argument. That'd be a harder
conversation. You mentioned setting these like specific goals, and somewhat humorously alluded to the fact that one of them was getting your brother laid, but like more realistic, what are the sorts of things that have to happen in the next 5 years for you to consider yourself a success?
I have a real specific number. Like I said, I made 6 figures before. I want that number again. Okay. That is the exact number I'm pursuing. I want.
So it's monetary. That's the signpost for you.
Yeah, and the reason for that is because I think that I've checked off enough boxes where artistically I'm happy with what I've done, and I have bigger ambitions artistically. Yeah. If nothing else happens from here on in, I could say I did an album, I did a special, I've been on TV 5 times. I am a relatively respected comedian in the New York scene, and I will be building on that going forward. But, so like, you know, like if my grandkids ask me, I could say, yeah, I did comedy.
You could be like, check out all the podcasts I was on.
Yeah. You know,
and they'd be like, what's a podcast, Grandpa?
You know, that'd be awesome. I'd love to explain that. Yeah, like it'd be so cool to like be able to like reflect on that period with them. Yeah. But the money part is so important because I feel like there is a difference between doing art and being compensated for your art. And I don't feel that it's necessarily important to get super rich off your art, but I do think it's important to be able to sustain a living from your art. That number might be different if I was in another state, but in New York, I feel like, you know, that does matter. And with that number, I'd be able to provide a comfortable living to my family that is of the standard that they've had before. And it would allow me to continue not only to do what I'm doing now, but there's even things that I'd want to pursue that I can't now that economically it would allow me to artistically as well. So that's the number that I have in my head. How I go about that, I'm open to trying a few different things, but yeah, it's a balance. That's the number that I have in my head that would allow me to say I'm doing this forever going forward if I can get to it.
Is it something that if, like, God forbid, hypothetically, you do end up going back to the old job or another job, would you see yourself continuing to, you know, still do the occasional stand-up set from time to time? Or if you weren't able to have that, you know, financial success and you did turn in the other direction, would you just kind of quit cold turkey?
No, I think at this point I found something that
you obviously really enjoy it.
Yeah. Like I love what I do. I found something that is vital to who I am as a person and how I process information, how I think about things. You
feel like it affects your day to day.
Yeah.
To that level.
I need to do stand-up.
Yeah.
It allows me to really go through my thoughts and it's made me a better person. So letting it go to that extent, I would never do. Letting it go with the, in terms of the intention of doing this professionally, that I could see happening. So like the difference would be instead of doing, 15, 20 sets a week, it'd probably be like 3, like, hey, I'm gonna go out because I have something in mind that I need to talk about and I want to see what it's like today. I want to get it out of my system. So today I'll go do 2-3 sets. In turn, I probably wouldn't do any road work, like, oh, you want to come do, this $100 gig in, Texas. Sure. Nah, I'm good. I would probably, the scale would change. Whereas now, anytime there's something comedy related, not only do I prioritize it, my whole family prioritizes it. So, my wife, instead of me picking her up, she'll, walk home from work. My in-laws or my parents will take care of my kids. Everyone has kind of like become part of this system of allowing me to pursue this to this level of seriousness. Whereas that would switch, my family and my job would be priority and I would fit comedy around it. So that would probably be the biggest shift that would happen. Yeah. So yeah, if it comes to that, it comes to that. I don't expect it to at this point, but yeah, that's probably where it would go. I can't see myself ever again going to the point to where I don't do stand up. It's too significant to how I process information. I feel like there is something truly freeing when you talk on stage and you have an audience directly telling you if you're nuts or not for thinking that,
Therapy in a way.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even go that far. Like, I feel like therapy there, because there's someone returning, like giving you actual words.
Sure.
There's a different aspect to it in the sense that, like, therapy, I think, helps you deal with tougher issues. Stand up helps me deal with day-to-day issues. I don't know. I feel like the scale is different. Like, I would go to therapy if I have like a level 10 problem. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is something there
are people like, I don't see a therapist, but there are people who like use therapy as like routine maintenance.
Hey, yeah, fair enough.
And people who, and I think in a lot of cases there's people who like don't have the outlet that you have.
Yeah. So go try stand-up. Yeah. It's a cheaper thing. It'll cost you a $5 drink ticket. And, it'll save you some money if your insurance isn't covering that, But yeah, I do find it healthy. I feel like it's a way to vocalize your thoughts. Yeah. You're a part of a community. You have other people around you that are, usually, within your age range. Mm-hmm. They live in your city, so they tend to have similar economic situations that come up with them.
But at the same time, it's a really diverse group of people. It seems
Right.
like when stand-up comedians in New York City,
Everybody.
it's every walk of life, right? It's kind of incredible.
That's what's beautiful about it. There's so many different people that attempt it, and in my opinion, it is the art form that has most embraced diversity and has done it the quickest and has done it the earliest. So it's beautiful to see that. But yeah, I just think there's something awesome about being able to express yourself in front of other, usually intelligent and open-minded people, and they're willing to hear you out and see if they understand your way of thinking.
Getting back to this idea of sacrifice, because this is actually something I think you do touch on the record a little bit, just in terms of some of the sacrifice your family has had to make in order for you to pursue this dream.
Yeah.
Or, as you just said, whether your wife's going to walk home or take a car from work. Does that wear on you at all? Because, it's wonderful that you get to pursue something that brings you joy, but I mean, is there a sense of guilt in having abandon, other people's creature comforts, your family's creature comforts, in order to pursue that dream?
You gonna break me today, just so you know. I'm gonna go home to shovel honey. I'm sorry, baby. This is being truthful. It's something that it doesn't wear on me, but it is something that I'm aware of. So I don't half-ass moments. I feel that, when my wife is, for example, my wife didn't work the first 9.5 years of our marriage. She was the caretaker, the homemaker, and she did awesome at it.
Yeah.
For the last 6 months, we've switched roles. She's gone and provided stability for the home by going back to work.
Did she want to? Oftentimes after 9 years, you want to get the fuck out of the house, right?
Yeah, and she did. And that was a big part of it. The first year or so that I was doing stand-up, to this day, I still can pay bills between stand-up and our tenant. But there's definitely a comfort that comes from her working. And so we had to talk, she's like, I want to go back to dealing with adults every day. And also that provides a certain comfort for us that, being frank, being an artist eliminated. So her doing that, was a big shift for us. I think about the fact that, every day she's at work now, and while we could live without her income, I know that it would affect us again. Mm-hmm. And I know she knows that now. So when she's at work and my kids are at school, I can't take a nap, and piss off the day. I work. So, 10 to 2 when the kids are out and I've dropped her and the kids off, I write those 4 hours,
You can spend that much time every day writing jokes?
Yeah. I do about, I do 90 minutes straight, take 15 minutes to kind of walk around and, just go back and forth, rinse, repeat.
What's that process like? What's it like spending that much time writing, a relatively short set? And I assume you're doing a half an hour a year or something? Or?
Yeah, I try to get to 30, 40 minutes every year of straight stand-up material. And I try to get 2 to 3 stories every year fully developed that are 10 to 15 minutes of their own individual piece.
So the writing to material ratio is completely out of whack.
Yeah, it's nuts. I can't, I don't know why it works that way, but that's just how it lands.
Is it like that way with other stand-ups? I mean, I'm sure you've talked about this with them.
Yeah, from what I've seen,
most people they don't treat it like a 9-to-5 job the way you do.
Yeah, and that's what I'm noticing now. I'm in year 7 now, year 6, year 7. So a lot of the comics that I've come up with right around now is when they're starting to get to that point to where they're figuring out a system.
They're starting to get serious about it after 7 years. Yeah,
because the first 6-7 years, it's a blend of it's a hobby. Yeah. Also, your time is spent on just learning how to be a stand-up.
Yeah, and you didn't have those luxuries in a way.
Yeah, I came in later. I had to literally study it. Okay, this is what doesn't work, this is what works. I needed to fast track a lot of that. That calmness to the approach, I couldn't justify it. So I've always been very studious about it, and I've approached it with that rigor because I needed my wife and to a lesser extent my dad, who was taking, kind of an extra burden with the properties and real estate stuff, to understand, I'm treating this with the same level of respect that I treated our businesses. So yeah, I feel that it's a process that's necessary and it's something that you need to treat that way. But yeah, in terms of how it works, I go to either my parents' yard. They live down the block and they have a much nicer yard than I do. So it's like 80 by 40 all grass, and that is an anomaly in my neighborhood. So I go
in
there.
New York, that's an anomaly.
Yeah. You know, so I go there and I'll pace back and forth with an idea out loud just so that I can hear what it sounds like. And then I'll sit down and write all the extensions of that idea. And then I'll try it again out loud over and over again. And then I'll look at my lineup for the night, and I'll plan out my night based on what shows pay that require me to do my A game versus what shows are, you know, free shows that I could try this stuff out at, and rinse repeat. I try to focus my writing based on the shows that I have that week so that I could try the material that I'm actively writing then.
If I go see you at a free show, odds are I'll see something you wrote that day.
Yeah, you'll, at the very least, is something I'm actively working on the last month, but something that day I tweaked in some way. So like if you see me that week, you might not notice the difference of he did the same jokes the 3 days in a row if you're a random casual fan. But if you're a fellow stand-up or if you're a fan of comedy, you'll notice that I changed wording or pacing. I did editing to it to make it a better joke. So you'll see that I wrote that day, but you'd have to be into stand-up to acknowledge the differences.
I saw you were on a show with my friend Ophira at QED in Astoria. God, I don't know how many months ago that would have been, maybe like 5 or 6 months ago.
That's the homie.
There was definitely some material that ended up on this album. And it was very clear that you were like working toward a cohesive set that you could put on record. Yeah.
And it's a process. You have to constantly whittle it down and figure out, you know, if you could eliminate words, if you're saying too much, make sure that you're saying it with the right tone and with the right pacing so that the emotion is conveyed the way you want it to. Figuring out what kind of audibles you could call in different moments, because the idea for what you want to happen versus what's happening that day might be different for various reasons.
In terms of audience reaction?
Right, exactly. Yeah. You know, the audience might react differently than you normally are accustomed to for, you know, the lighting, size of the room. Yeah. So I always have like audibles, meaning like extra punchlines or adjustments that I can make in the moment that
the line of scrimmage.
Like kind of get me back in line with what I had in mind. So I'm always writing with those things in mind. So those little nuances are what I'm constantly trying at shows. So like I'll purposely, once I have a joke, usually I'll start out with like a thought that something, you know, gives me an extreme emotion. So like the joke I'm working on currently has to do with the level of freedom that I provide my kids versus what my wife wants. And this conversation started with the fact that I was 8 years old when I first walked 2 blocks alone from my grandparents' house to the library. And I used to do it every day. And my wife's mind was blown away by this. She's like, I didn't go to the store on my own block alone until I was in 8th grade. So my kids are 9 and 10. They go to school 4 blocks away. My wife is no longer the primary taker of the kids to school. So she and I are having real serious talks because her idea was I'm going to walk the kids every day to school. Whereas I think they should walk to school alone next year. So we've had real discussions about that. So much so that this year I let them walk alone, but I followed them so that I could prove to her, hey, they know direction and there's a certain level of freedom we need to provide them as parents. And then also get her side. There's a certain level of protection we need to provide to avoid issues. So that's what started the idea, a real serious moment that I felt adamant about, that I was frustrated that I couldn't win the argument with my wife.
Do you need her approval before you discuss these things on stage?
No. I only need approval whenever it's directly about her. There's like a line that I wouldn't talk about anything negative about my wife. Not that there is much anyway. I love the lady.
But I mean, you know, that's how relationships are. There's always something, right?
Yeah, there is a line that I know that I wouldn't cross about her. But in terms of like things like that, that's a general family issue. There's nothing there that would give away something about her personally. It's just a thought about what we think is best for our kids. So something like that, I feel fully comfortable discussing. On my end, I'm fully open with almost anything that's come up, but I definitely check with her when I feel like this is close. And she said no about a few topics. So I've left those off. I would say it hasn't come up often. I think maybe like 3 jokes that I've wanted to try that she was like, I'd rather not talk about it. And I respect it. You know, I would feel different if again, she'd met me as a comic, but she didn't. So I want to be a bit more respectful of her boundaries with that stuff. But yeah, I'm developing that idea. So like I went from that moment, I expressed it out loud a lot. I expressed what frustrated me about it. And the first time I did it was at QED, ironically, and it was a 12-minute bit on just that. The whole set was just that. And now it's like a 3-minute concise thing that I do that works. So now I want to punch it up. I want to make sure it's perfect. So I'll purposely try it with no energy. You know, I'll do it to see that if just the words work. And then that'll give me an idea, okay, clearly these words work only if I say it with this energy. So can I get this tighter? And then from there, I'll work on the energy aspects of it. Okay, now I got the most jokes out of it verbally and in terms of the text. Now I can work on the delivery aspect of it. So all those little adjustments to a random person that sees me, you know, twice might not seem like I changed it. He was like, oh, you just did the same joke. It's not. It's a huge difference. And all of that is in pursuit of the perfect moment where I do it either on like TV or for an album.
In describing the recording of this album that you did, is it two different sets, right? That fed into this. That one of them was much more East New York than the other one.
Yeah.
Based on the I mean, other than like the obvious of having like people from East New York there, like how does that change a room?
Yeah, it was a lot more energy. I'll say that for sure. It changes the dynamic just because it's a home game, you know. So like your friends are there.
They're rooting for you.
Yeah, the room is rooting for you quite a bit more to win. In turn, they are rooting so much for you that they interfere a lot. They are definitely more interactive. They're more involved. So you have to change how you deliver things so that you encourage or in turn also tell them when to not be quite as involved. Whereas a traditional room will kind of know, okay, especially in New York, they're almost educated. This is a comedy show. I'm going to step back. I'm going to be quiet. Whereas my friends, they're my friends. They're not comedy fans. So they're so excited for me that their energy is oozing and they're like interfering with the show because they're not accustomed to being at comedy shows. They're just accustomed to cheering for you. So there's a balancing act that I have to do where I deliver the lines almost differently to ensure that they know this isn't a moment for you, now cheer, or vice versa.
They're also going to get the references faster than anybody else, which you don't necessarily want an album, right? Because you want that to be more universal. You don't want an album that's only going to sell in your neighborhood.
Right. That would be cool though, I would say. I would love to do like, a fully...
Remember when the Virgin Megastore was in like Times Square and the dudes would just stand outside and sell their like hip hop records on CD? You could just do that on the corner and just like sell your stand-up album.
Just East New York only fan base. Sold 10,000 albums for all 9,999 in here. That'd be awesome. I'm actually tempted to do that now.
Go door to door.
Yeah. Just in this neighborhood, sell out right here. Put all my flyers up on the A and C train only. That'd be awesome. But yeah, like it definitely gets in the way. In that regard, so you have to be aware that you don't do that.
There's a beat on the record, and you know, I think he did for obvious reasons had similar reaction in Astoria, where you're like, I'm from the East New York, and nobody does anything, and then you go, that's the proper reaction.
Right.
Which based on that, I'm assuming that the one that made it onto the record was not the home field advantage.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Whereas when I did it in the East New York, when I got a loud cheer.
Yeah.
Actually, funny you referenced that. It's something I try to be aware of, but I don't normally have to deal with. And because of that, I made a mistake on the record and didn't fully explain who Tooth was. For that exact reason.
There is, a lady gets really excited at that, and I was wondering, I was like, God damn, what did I miss?
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, because of her excitement, I forgot to explain.
Her excitement was that she knew who the person was.
Exactly. Okay. She genuinely knows Tooth because he is a legendary character in my neighborhood. Because of that, and, you know, assessing the room, how many people knew Tooth.
This is your opportunity to make up for that. Who is Tooth and why is he famous?
Tooth is
and why is he called Tooth?
Tooth is a lifelong friend of mine. He is a character who regularly has avoided having a job for extended periods of times in his life. He's 36 years old still, and he is known as Tooth because his whole life he had an extra tooth in his mouth, and we just nicknamed him that, and it stuck, and he embraced it, and he took it as a point of pride. Tooth is a great kid. He's funny. He is someone that's always been in all of our hangouts. And he is constant humor to me, and I still want my $180, despite that he owes me money to this day. But yeah, he goes through extended periods of time where you can't find him, And then when you do, there is an extreme story that took place.
Yeah.
Phenomenal basketball player who's won me a lot of money by pretending that we didn't know each other, showing up at basketball courts and rigging games. It's been great.
You never got your ass beat down for that?
No, because we're also pretty big East New Yorkers. So, but yeah, we have a lot of fun history. And when I said that, and I was going to tell that story, I won't say her name, but the woo came from his ex-girlfriend. Who was very excited because she didn't know that I was telling the story.
And she knew there was going to be a story.
Yes, she knew, because she had heard the Tooth story, the joke that I do on the album. Yeah. I told it my first year doing stand-up, and it's one of the first bits I did that worked. So that's why I decided to do it again, because I figured this room would understand this story more than most people, because you guys know Tooth. But yes, I did not explain who Tooth was like I did when I normally do the bit, because I hadn't done the bit in so long. It was something that I did actually technically after the album was done. I had done both sets, and it was kind of like, me coming back out to say thank you. It's something that, to your point, you have to be kind of aware of so that you don't forget the reference for who someone is.
It's a punchline that works. You don't need to know him for the punchline to work.
Correct. Yeah. I just would have liked to have explained it more, if only because it would give Tooth more fame in my neighborhood, and I think he would have appreciated being able to have proof that the Tooth I'm talking about is him.
I mean, it sounds like he's into having made it into your set and onto the album.
Yeah, he is very proud. He is very happy. He introduces himself as that. He's like, I'm Tooth. You ever heard Immigrant Made by Gastor? That's me. That's from the Tooth on that part of the album. Yeah, him and my cousin Alex is also very proud of that, because Alex is in the second track when I reference the wheelchair-friendly aspect of the Bronx and all those people coming over. Yeah. They are very proud of being parts of the project. And it's something that, being frank, I wanted to kind of do. I wanted people who weren't from my neighborhood to kind of know that these are real people, they're real characters, and while they might be different from the people they're still real, and they're genuine people, and they're good people. Particularly with Alex, his intentions were pure. He had a friend that wanted to come to the show, and he wanted to make sure we could accommodate him, but he happened to be someone that is wheelchair bound, and he wanted to make sure he could help him. So I thought that was beautiful. I just reminded everyone that he might bring a pit bull in the process. And it worked out.
You mentioned earlier that with your parents, specifically your father's idea of success, making money was part of it, but also that moving off the block was part of it too.
Yeah.
Obviously, so much of who you are, and then just so much of your comedy in general, is tied specifically to East New York as a neighborhood. Is that a goal? Do you expect to ever move, or do you think you're going to be there for the rest of your life? Are you happy there and don't want to leave?
Yeah, and this is probably one of the more consistent talks I have with my wife and my dad. My dad is really adamant that I do everything possible to provide the best for my kids. And my wife and dad disagree on necessarily what that is. My dad feels that I should be constantly looking to buy more rental property in East New York, because it'll allow me to generate income. I can pay for things that my kids need. My wife feels that, we should move away. She also grew up in East New York. She's been here since she was 10, 11 years old. She immigrated over.
She wants to stay in the city?
She wants to stay in the city, but she would definitely like to go to a place with a bigger yard, probably like Queens, or even if we just left the city slightly, like Long Island. But she wants a more traditional family white picket fence thing. And it's a talk that we've had a lot more often since maybe the last year or so.
You mentioned where your dad stands and where she stands. Where do you stand on all this?
I see the positives of both, and more I feel that it's important that I stay there. I think that too many times when someone does better economically, they leave where they're from, and those resources and that person who would change the standard of living of a neighborhood, that's a loss to that neighborhood that we can't replicate, that we can't get back. And those people matter. Those people are important to the development and improvement of a neighborhood. Second, I feel like it's a problem if the neighborhood gets better by having new people move in, because now the people that are benefiting from it aren't the locals that were there. So I am actively trying to kind of do something in the middle, meaning I am looking to control and purchase as much property in East New York as possible, but I'm also looking to rent it to as many East New Yorkers as possible. I want to make sure that the people that are here are a reflection of the people that I grew up with, and that they're actively trying to improve it from within, and that the neighborhood that I grew up in is a Latin and Black neighborhood, is also a Latin and Black neighborhood as my kids grow up.
I assume this is coming from a real place, but there's mention on the record of running out to the gay couple and then getting 3 gay couples in different units in the building. In a roundabout way, maybe you are sort of playing a little bit of a role in that gentrification, right? I mean, that's got to be a tough place to be.
And that's a debate that my dad and I have literally every apartment. Initially,
every time somebody tries to rent something?
Yeah, because it's the dynamic of that. So that's literally the debate. My dad is saying every time someone leaves, I would rent to a white or a gay couple. He's saying that adamantly because they will pay top dollar. Yeah. They're going to take care of the property.
They sort the recyclables.
Right. They're great. So he's like, they're easy tenants. They pay more. They pay on time. And I agree with that. And I get that. And he's saying, by doing that, you have more money to give your kids. But in turn, they are bringing their kids. Yeah. And now this neighborhood is theirs instead of people that look like my kid. That's kind of the debate. So after we did that, literally we went almost back and forth on every apartment. So every time I rent something out, I look at the balance. How many of our tenants are Black and Latino? How many tenants are white? How many tenants are from here, as in not even necessarily East New York, but from New York? All those things I'm constantly debating per property, per rental opportunity. And, right now we're probably like 70-30 locals, and that's kind of the ratio we've tried to keep. There was a moment where it was like about 50-50. Yeah. I felt uncomfortable because, to your point, I felt like I was part of the people pushing for the gentrification to happen. I'm not necessarily fully against new people coming here. I feel that that's how neighborhoods develop. East New York in particular has a huge, beautiful, storied history of being a place where new people come here, new communities come there and establish themselves before moving elsewhere. Huge Italian community before they moved to like Howard Beach, and similar to what we're doing now. We're leaving ideally to better places. We're developing communities in like neighboring states. So it's not New York, but we are doing it. But in turn, there is also a part of me that wants to keep a lot of the cultural things. I love Starbucks. I want that. But I also want to go get empanadas, from the local cart lady. I'm not saying I know the exact answer. I have a gut feeling of what feels right. And that's kind of what I'm always trying to do my best to maintain. And I'm aware that realistically the neighborhood will gentrify because there's an opportunity there. I'm okay with that. What I want to know is that I wasn't the driving force necessarily to that, but that I was someone that made people that are gentrifiers, who for the most part have good intentions, I made them aware of the beauty that was here before you got here and helped them to help us maintain some of that as they come in, so that when they move into this neighborhood, you don't dismiss or remove what was here before it, but try to balance and keep the highlights of that as you also bring in new things that you add to it. Because there's things that were there before we got there, before that, I mentioned it on the record and I've mentioned it in my stand-up stuff, where my favorite pizza shop is Vito. It's an Italian guy that's been in East New York and he's seen all of his people leave. Yeah. So he could have took it that way, like, oh, who are these Black and Spanish kids? But he's become a staple in the community, and he's seen that those people add value as well. And they've still kept certain Italian things that were beautiful to the neighborhood. So that's all I'm asking is, when people come in that are from out of town, that aren't locals, that as they bring in the cool things they have, and that they want to add to this community, that they look for the things that are awesome about ours already and look to keep that.
There you go. That was a very funny Gastor Almonte, whose new record, Immigrant Made, is out now on 800 Pound Gorilla Records. Thanks to him for taking the time to do that. Thanks to Heidi for helping to set up that conversation. Thanks to you guys, as always, for listening to the program. If you like the show, there are a few ways to support us. Most important is rating and reviewing us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you happen to get your podcasts. Like us on Facebook. If you've got any feedback, it's rwellcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Tumblr. That's rwellcast.tumblr.com. And that's about all we got for now. So stick around, because we're going to be back in a few days with another episode of RIYL.